The Fort of the Damned was the toughest content in Sea of Thieves for years, but with the Skull of Destiny and Season 9's difficulty scaling, you can come away with its loot in a matter of minutes. First things first, we've got to purchase the quest for the skull, available at the shipwright for 100 blue doubloons. Voting on it at the captain's table, the quest gives us a legendary compass to point us in the direction of where the skull is buried. While 2 hourglass sloops are duking it out right next to us, we dig up our skull. Technically, we can activate the fort with just this skull, but we've got something else in mind. We're gonna dig up a second Skull of Destiny and use it as a lantern during the raid. You see, there's a trick to how these skulls can work in a pirate's favor, and we're gonna take full advantage. What's most important right now, though, is preparation. First, we check to see what ships are nearest in the area. Here we can see a sloop at Old Brinestone Fortress. Next, we arrive at the Fort of the Damned and pre-position our sloop for the easiest harpooning of loot. We stock up on food supplies with our storage crate, and we plant gunpowder barrels already present on the island inside the fort for a surprise. Now we use the Skull of Destiny's flame to light each of the lanterns that the Fort of the Damned statues are holding, and as someone who has played the game since launch, man, is doing this such a nice feeling. One last quick check on the horizon just to make sure that there aren't any interlopers within a quick sailing distance to the fort. With the horizon clear, it was time to get underway. I'm gonna add a timer to this portion of the video so that you can understand the pace and flow of the fort now that it's changed since Season 9 is launched. First, the Fort of the Damned as a whole scales in difficulty to the crew size of those challenging it. This was done so that solo and duo players wouldn't feel hamstringed any longer by time-consuming world events, where it could take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, even an hour to complete an event, giving others the opportunity to come in for the potential steal. Now, this doesn't mean that others can't steal, but the pacing of world events has changed dramatically in Season 9 as well, including with Forts of the Damned. Where you used to encounter up to 3 different Shadow Skeleton colors, each wave will now only have one color. And here, where you see as I change the flame on the Skull of Destiny that's laying on the ground, this is the trick I mentioned earlier. By staggering skeletons as they approach the fort entrance, this gives you the opportunity to swipe at them unhindered several times with a sword, decreasing the amount of enemies you'll have to face at the same time dramatically. I can't tell you how many times I would get stuck on a Fort of the Damned when trying to complete one solo because of the sheer number of enemies present and the different colors of them that would wipe me out. Yes, eventually through grinding, you could whittle down the mobs and move on to the next wave, but it would only be just as difficult, if not more so, as each new wave was activated. In addition, any increase in time spent would only mean more opportunities for other pirates to sail on in and disrupt your raid. But now, just slice away. It's such a satisfying feeling. Skeleton captains have also been added to certain waves, but they won't drop any skulls. This is probably the only change in the Fort of the Damned event I dislike, since the captains are more tanky than your average skeleton and just serve to slow you down. I am a little curious as to the logic behind not giving out skulls for these guys, but they'll still only come in the one color, so just make sure your Skull of Destiny has the correct flame and hammer away. Every now and again, you'll also encounter skeletons that'll be carrying kegs. At first, it'll be normal gunpowder kegs, but later on as you progress through the waves, they'll upgrade to the Stronghold gunpowder kegs. If at all possible, I would recommend saving these kegs, just in case you'll need to use them in the future. You'll never know when a keg may come in handy, just try not to get blown up by them in the process. Like that. Thankfully, it's never been faster to get back in from the Ferry of the Damned, and even though I lost just under a minute of time, there was still no one approaching that I could see during a check on my return, so back up to the top of the fort I went. Turns out that explosion had also destroyed all the skeletons of that wave, which left me with just another boss wave of skeleton captains to take out instead. And once that wave was done, it was time for Greymarrow. But do you remember that stack of gunpowder kegs we'd placed? You'll never finish a Fort of the Damned differently again. It took just 8 minutes and 55 seconds to complete this fort solo. Something that would have been unthinkable before Season 9 had launched. And the best part is that the loot granted for the Fort of the Damned was not changed. So even though it's never been easier to complete a Fort of the Damned, you'll still get the same amount of loot that you would have gotten prior to the changes. I quickly stacked the loot at the location best suited for the ship's harpoon and buried the Reaper's chests so as to not give away my position immediately to anyone just logging in. Once again, the auto harpoon is another saving grace when it comes to timeliness, and we quickly depart from the fort as fast as we can with our booty, making way for the nearest outpost over at Plunder. Once I get my bearings, I start moving loot back from the harpoon area of the ship to the center, near the mast. Why? So I can make it easier to harpoon from the Sovereign's tent once we arrive at our destination. Again, I can't stress this enough. Preparation is the key to success when it comes to solo play. As we started selling to the Sovereign representative, we had 313,547 gold. And by the time we were through selling everything, yes, including the Stronghold gunpowder barrels, we came away with 413,549 gold. 100,000 gold earned in a matter of minutes. But we weren't quite through just yet. There was still the matter of the 2 Reaper's chests buried at the Fort of the Damned. We had to quickly dig those chests back up and make haste for Reaper's hideout, just in case anyone was paying close attention to the map and saw the 2 chests moving. The first Reaper's chest sold would give us 25 blue doubloons, recouping a small amount of doubloons that had been spent on the Skull of Destiny, while the Reaper's bounty added an additional 15,000 gold to my total. If I really wanted to maximize my earnings, I would have been carrying trade goods or commodities on ship, maxed out a Reaper's emissary, and then turned everything in for even more gold. In the end, in a total time spent of less than 1 hour, we came away with 115,671 pieces of gold. Not a bad haul at all, wouldn't you say? Uh-huh. Yep. Seems like Mr. Bonesworth agrees. I hope that I have inspired some of you to try and do this for yourselves, because I don't want you to miss out on a piece of this great game just because you think it's unavailable to you. Trust me, it's not. Not anymore. Until the next adventure, this is Jon Bardcore signing out, saying so long and take care.